Section 43 of The Fables of Pilpay. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Michael McTaggart, Midland, Washington. The Fables of Pilpay, by Anonymous. Translated by Abdullah Ibn al-Muqaffa and Joseph Harris. Fable 2. The Partridge and the Falcon. "A partridge," said Zoroastrian, keeping close to his hole, but very obligingly pursuing his discourse, "was promenading at the foot of a hill, and tuning her throat, in her coarse way, so delightfully, that a falcon flying that way and hearing her voice, came towards her, and very civilly was going to ask her acquaintance. 'Nobody,' said he to himself, 'can live without a friend, and it is the saying of the wise that they who want friends labor under perpetual sickness.' With these thoughts he would fain have accosted the partridge, but she, perceiving him, escaped into a hole, all over in a cold sweat for fear. The falcon followed her, and presenting himself at the entrance of the hole, 'My dear partridge,' said he, 'I own that I never had, hitherto, any great kindness for you, because I did not know your merit. But since my good fortune now has made me acquainted with your merry note, be pleased to give me leave to speak with you, that I may offer you my friendship, and that I may beg of you to grant me yours.' 'Tyrant,' answered the partridge, 'let me alone, and labor not in vain to reconcile fire and water.' 'Most amiable partridge,' replied the falcon, 'banish these idle fears, and be convinced that I love you, and desire that we may enter into a familiarity together. Had I any other design, I would not trouble myself to court you with such soft language out of your hole. Believe me, I have such good pounces that I would have seized a dozen other partridges in the time that I have been courting your affection. I am sure you will have reason enough to be glad of my friendship. First, because no other falcon shall do you any harm while you are under my protection. Secondly, because that being in my nest, you will be honored by the world. And lastly, I will procure you a male to keep you company, and give you all the delights of love and a young progeny.' 'It is impossible for me to think that you can have so much kindness for me,' replied the partridge, 'but, indeed, should this be true, I ought not to accept your proposal. For you being the prince of birds, and of the greatest strength, and I a poor weak partridge, whenever I shall do anything that displeases you, you will not fail to tear me to pieces.' 'No, no,' said the falcon, 'set your heart at rest for that. The faults that friends commit are easily pardoned.' Much other discourse of this kind passed between them, and many doubts were started and answered satisfactorily, so that at length the falcon testified such an extraordinary friendship for the partridge that she could no longer refuse to come out of her hole. And no sooner was she come forth than the falcon tenderly embraced her, and carried her to his nest, where for 2 or 3 days he made it his whole business to divert her. The partridge, overjoyed to see herself so caressed, gave her tongue more liberty than she had done before, and talked much of the cruelty and savage temper of the birds of prey. This began to offend the falcon, though for the present he dissembled it. One day, however, he unfortunately fell ill, which hindered him in going abroad in search of prey, so that he grew hungry. And wanting victuals, he soon became melancholy, morose, and churlish. His being out of humour quickly alarmed the partridge, who kept herself very prudently close in a corner, with a very modest countenance. But the falcon, soon after, no longer able to endure the importunities of his stomach, resolved to pick a quarrel with the poor partridge, to which purpose, 'It is not proper,' he said, 'that you should lie lurking there in the shade, while all the world is exposed to the heat of the sun.' The partridge, trembling every joint of her, replied, 'King of birds, it is now night, and the world is in the shade as well as I, nor do I know what sun you mean.' 'Insolent baggage,' replied the falcon, 'then you will make me a liar or mad.' And, so saying, he fell upon her and tore her to pieces. "Do not believe," pursued the rat, "that upon the fate of your promises that I will lay myself at your mercy." "Recollect yourself," answered the raven, "and consider that it is not worth my while to fool my stomach with such a diminutive body as thine. It is therefore with no such intent I am talking with thee, but I know thy friendship may be beneficial to me. Scruple not, therefore, to grant me this favor." "The sages of old," replied the rat, "admonish us to take care of being deluded by the fair words of our enemies, as was a certain unfortunate man, whose story, if you please, I will relate to you." End of section 43.